It's a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad on this very special baseball episode. We are going to go in detail not only on what the baseball season has turned out to be this year, but what the baseball season should have been and what the baseball season should be going forward, because we all know that baseball needs to be fixed, and we are going to tell you right here and now exactly how to fix baseball. But before we get into that, as always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who is so old he apparently can't figure out how to use a spreadsheet on a computer, my dad, Tim.
It's easier if I just wrote everything out.
Dude, seriously, you need to look at these notes he gave me here so I can pull these up on the screen for you.
Stop.
I can't read this. If you can read this, let me know and try and decipher this for me, because this might as well be Egyptian hieroglyphics. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it.
You're wearing my all-time favorite Cubs logo.
Yes. The Cub's ugly.
No, the little Cubby Bear is my favorite.
This is the worst Cub ever made.
I love that Cub.
It's
the 69 Cub.
It's Mickey Mouse.
It's the 69 Cub.
This is Mickey Mouse. I mean, it's by far the worst logo the Cubs have ever had.
That's not true. The one they had in the early 90s in a circle with just a bear in it, that was really bad.
The fuzzy one?
Yeah, that was bad.
That is the worst one. This is the second worst one. I like the 80s one with the red circle around it better than the Mickey Mouse over here.
I like the 84 jerseys, the blue with the white pants for the road, which I know you hate, but I love.
It's not... I don't hate the blue. Obviously, my all-time favorite uniforms are the Cubs road blue uniforms. But where were the buttons? You wore softball uniforms for an entire year.
Everybody did back then.
They were softball uniforms.
Look at all the uniforms. The Cardinals were the worst of all.
In every single way, the Cardinals are the worst of all.
Stop it.
That's why Mr. Cardinal's on your side of the table for the bobbleheads.
We have a lot of viewers in St. Louis. They're the best fans in baseball.
Oh, hands down. No, and I want every St. Louis fan to know this. I have so much respect for your team and your franchise that I hate you for it. I am a Cubs fan, and I have to deal with ownership that sells off a team to try and build a casino above the stadium when you guys just consistently, in a small market, create magic every single year and create tradition and create history. And I love it. It's very much like being a Packer fan. I got to assume is what it's like to be a Cardinal fan. But I also understand why people hate the Green Bay Packers, because I hate the Cardinals for the same reason.
Everybody says how there was a huge rivalry between the Cubs and the Cardinals. In that rivalry, the Cardinals are the hammer and the Cubs are the nail. So it's not really a rivalry.
It's a rivalry on Chicago's side. It's the same thing with Milwaukee and the Cubs.
For a long time.
Like, the Brewers think that the Cubs and Brewers have a rivalry. We don't. I mean, Cubs fans, I'm sorry, Brewers fans, we don't even think about you. We just think of you as a cheaper place to go and watch a game.
With better food.
With better food up in North Wrigley. The Cardinals are our rival, and the Cardinals probably think they have somebody else as a rival.
So before we get into this, I think this is very appropriate for this episode. This is to our friend Rob Manford. People will come, Rob. They will come to baseball stadiums for reasons they can't even fathom. They'll take their cars and drive to stadiums all over the country. They'll arrive at your stadiums and just like innocent little children longing for the past. Of course, you won't mind if they come and pay for a ticket and watch the game. It's only $60. Take it. Come and watch baseball as it's meant to be. You'll be able to cheer for your team to win a division again, because in baseball, winners are what matters. You don't get into the playoffs unless your team wins your division. So, Rob, people will come back, Rob, if only you have the guts and the courage to make these changes.
It was good. I mean, not as good as James Earl Jones,
Never pretended to be.
but it was solid.
Considering I did that on the fly just now.
That was improv skills right there.
I have James in front of me as motivation and inspiration.
I mean, James Earl Jones probably is the voice of my childhood. Field of Dreams was on all the time in the house, and obviously Lion King was my all-time favorite movie growing up.
And going back a few years,
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
Obviously, I watched Star Wars as a kid. Darth Vader, of course.
They used to say a good actor could read the phone book and make it entertaining. He could do that.
He and Morgan Freeman
Yes.
probably have the two voices. Matthew McConaughey's got a good voice, too.
He does, as does Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott is also on that list. Those are really the four I can think of. I don't know if there's anybody else I could listen to read the phone book. Matthew McConaughey might be hard to listen to read the phone book, but the other three, between Morgan Freeman, Sam Elliott, and James Earl Jones, they could rock me to sleep.
Well, Matthew McConaughey actually does bedtime stories now.
That's true. He does. You know, I learned that. I was watching something, so the clips of the Graham Norton show pop up on my YouTube all the time.
That's where I learned
and
it
Michael
too.
Bublé was talking about it because
Yeah.
he was on with Matthew McConaughey. It was hilarious.
Yeah, because he's sitting there, his wife's going, he's putting you to sleep again. Why do you bring him into our bedroom?
That's another guy, Michael Bublé, I have a lot of respect for. Not only is he one of the most talented people on the face of the earth, but his kid got sick. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
His 3-year-old got cancer.
And he stopped traveling.
He stopped.
He was done.
This was even before COVID. Obviously, he stopped through COVID as well for different reasons. But his I think it's his daughter. If it's his son, I apologize. But I think it's his daughter. Was diagnosed with cancer in like 2017 when she was 3 years old. And he said, my music career is on hold until this gets fixed. So much respect. But speaking of respect, one person I do not have any respect for is really baseball right now as a whole.
Yes.
But especially Rob Manfred. And I think a lot of this, and you're going to disagree with this because you have this weird obsession with the dude, but Bud Selig as well is a large person to blame for where baseball is at this very moment.
Okay. Here's all I'm going to say about Bud. At the time, baseball was bleeding money and swirling the drain.
Well, because they went on strike in 94.
Hold on. So he had to bring it back, but what he did that was wrong is he turned it into all these little regional pockets instead of remembering that this is a national pastime, and that's why the changes we're going to talk about need to be made immediately.
And there's nothing wrong with having a regional spin to it. I think enhancing the regional rivalries was a really good idea because he needed to at that point to save the game, but he made it so regionalized that nobody pays attention to it during the day.
When you think of baseball, and I'll go back in the day when I was, I don't know, my late teens, early 20s, you had George Brett, you had Aaron Boone, you had Thurman Munson, you had Johnny Bench, you had Pete Rose, the whole Big Red Machine, Davey Concepcion. I could tell you players from every single team.
Right.
Now, Aaron Judge, Ohtani.
Right. Trout,
Maybe not.
people don't even know Chris Bryant anymore.
Bryce Harper, maybe.
Bryce Harper after a
After the
couple of
night
big
he
home
had.
runs.
Yeah, but still.
Go Phillies, by the way. Dusty Baker should never have a World Series for what he did for the Chicago Cubs. But anyways.
Alex is going to come all over you. One of our listeners is a huge Houston fan. So, but I'm with you. Dusty Baker destroyed the 2004 Chicago Cubs and Mark Pryor.
2003 Chicago Cubs. Thank you very
Sorry.
much. I mean, if you're going to misremember his.
Make me a liar for a year.
The
But
2004 Chicago Cubs were
fine.
trash. So
He ruined Mark Pryor's career. And
he did. He did. And then completely mismanaged the Reds and got lucky that he has a team that was pre-built for him. But anyways, go Phillies. So let's get into this.
All right.
Somebody did point out something that was really funny. The last time the Phillies won the World Series, the economy crashed.
so then
And so if the Phillies win the World Series, just be prepared for another recession. I want to say is when the Cubs won the World
we're
Series,
already in a recession. What are you talking about?
that's why we know it's going to happen. All I'm saying is when the Cubs won the World Series, the economy was great. So be a Cubs fan. Hang out with me. It's all good news.
I think the last time the Phillies won a World Series, Tug McGraw was the relief
It was
pitcher.
08.
Was it 08?
Yeah, remember? They won with Ryan Howard and who's a pitcher on that team? It's going to bug me now.
Okay, I am because I forgot 08 completely.
Yeah, they won in 2008, which is when the economy crashed right after that. So if the Phillies win, which I hope they do, but be prepared for another economic downfall.
Anybody who's put gas in their car recently knows we're already in an economic downfall.
Listen, the Powerball is $1.2 billion. We just got to win that. That's all we got to do.
I only want to win once.
That's it. I'm not selfish.
No, I'm not either.
Just once.
We will share.
Yeah, $1.2 billion is a lot to share.
By the way, if we win, you won't see in the next episode because we'll be busy doing other things for a while.
We'll be doing, but we'll be back. Yeah. But don't worry, we're not going to win the lottery. So just keep watching the show.
Somebody's going to win.
Somebody is going to win. But what I want to happen more, and I'm being dead serious, more than winning the lottery, what I want to see happen is I want baseball to be saved.
I do too.
This is a sport I grew up loving. And we're in a situation right now where it's hard for me to get my kids to watch.
Well, it's because it's so late. The game
That's the other big
late.
problem. The games, what are you doing starting games so late? But anyways, we are diving in to something. We also did one thing, by the way, before we jump into that. Apparently, anyways is what we say. I guess we're supposed to say anyway. That was pointed out to me by a recent listener. I'm going to say it how I want. And I guess it's just a Midwest twist.
We haven't talked about bubblers at all on the show.
We haven't. We could dive into that.
We won't.
But we are talking baseball here. And
the greatest game, the most perfect game ever invented.
And in reality, it really is. It is the best game. But the problem is they've tried to be other things. And they just need to be the sport that they are. First and foremost, this is what needs to happen. Baseball needs to be about winning.
Yes.
Once again.
Baseball, the winner, only people that ever got to the playoffs or the World Series were the teams that won, going back to 69, their division. Before that, they had to win the National League or the American League. Now, we're football and basketball. Everybody gets in as a wild card.
Right.
It should not happen.
Listen, it works in football, and even in football, I don't agree with the 7th playoff team. I think it dilutes the playoffs too much, having half your teams in the playoffs. What's the point? But for football, it works, right? For basketball, it works. What they're doing works. For the NHL, it works. For baseball, it doesn't. One thing that was amazing about baseball, and it changed as I was growing up when they added the wild card, because don't forget they wanted the Red Sox and the Yankees in the World Series, which wasn't a thing until recent history.
It was never a thing. One of them was going to go, maybe.
Right. And that was, it made the rivalries better. But anyways, it was about winning is exactly what baseball was about. One thing baseball is credited for is the celebrations they have at the end of every single year, right? They're popping champagne because they had to win the division. It's 162 games.
And what was also always important is you want all 162 games to matter, because otherwise, if you're in Baltimore for the last 1,000 years, right, they're out of it by Memorial Day.
Exactly.
Why would you go to a game?
Exactly. And the Phillies proved this year that you don't have to win to get in and to win a World Series. They were the 7th seed that got in by the skin of their teeth because the Brewers tanked.
Yes. Well, in all honesty, when we look at this, the Phillies would have been in the playoffs in our system.
We are, and we're going to show our system more in detail here. But specifically when it comes about winning, you have to make baseball about winning again. It's about winning divisions. It's about winning playoff series. It's about winning American League, National League, and it's about winning the World Series. What I loved about baseball growing up is the fact that if you didn't win your division, you didn't go to the playoffs. It doesn't matter if you were the second best team in baseball. It didn't matter. You had to win your division, which strengthened rivalry stronger. It made you pay attention to the rest of the league, because all of a sudden, Yankees, Red Sox, right? If it's coming down to the wire in the last month, you're engaged in every single game, no matter if the Red Sox or the Yankees are playing.
Dodgers, Giants that one year. They both won 100 games.
Right.
Only one went to the playoffs. And that's what makes baseball unique. And in order for this to happen, baseball's got to step outside of their little box and go, okay, we're in 2022 now. It's time to take a look at our divisions in a different way to make everything more interesting. And this, our way of doing it, will make baseball relevant again. And that's what's not there.
It'll make people pay attention.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, the reason in basketball people pay attention to the regular season is not because they care about the records.
They don't.
It's 8 teams in each league getting there. More than half the league is getting into the playoffs. They pay attention because you have players like Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have players like Steph Curry. You have players like LeBron James, like Trae Young, where they're doing things you don't see people do on a regular basis, and you want to watch for the player. David Stern did a great job understanding where basketball was popular, and he made it about the name on the back of the jersey, not on the front. Football you pay attention to because fantasy football took off. I never paid attention to anybody but the Packers growing up. Guess what? I got into fantasy football. I all of a sudden care about the Buffalo Bills versus the Pittsburgh Steelers because I got 2 players that are playing that night.
So, and you know why I love baseball? Because I really got into it in the 1969 season. My first game that I can remember coming home and watching was when Ernie Banks hit number 500.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old. And I remember the Milwaukee Braves. We went to them. But baseball for me growing up, they would roll TVs into study hall so we could actually watch the World Series in an afternoon. And that's what also has to be fixed. Baseball, you have destroyed your own game because you're not making it available to young kids to fall in love with the game.
I just pulled it up here on the screen. Move up start times of playoff games. For the love of God and all that is holy. No more, and even regular season games. No more Sunday night baseball starting at 8:30 Eastern time. No more playoff games, World Series games starting at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern time.
We watched the Cubs win the World Series.
At 2 a.m.
2 a.m. It was ridiculous. There is no reason on a weekend. They don't have to do it every weekend. You can start the games at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern. But on the weekends, start a game at 3 in the afternoon or 1 in the afternoon so kids can actually watch it.
Listen, when does the Super Bowl start on Sunday?
5:20 whatever Central, 6:20 whatever Eastern.
Right. You know why they do that?
To get the biggest audience they can get.
And to get kids involved.
Yes.
Kids get to watch a game. And it's Sunday night. It's a weekday. Basically the night before you go back to work. That's what's so amazing about the Super Bowl. It is the biggest thing on television, and it's a night before you go back to work. And they make it early enough where you can enjoy the game, and the game's over by 9 o'clock at night Central.
So you can recover from the hangover.
So you can recover, and they're not expecting you in. It's a different ball game. But no playoff game, especially no World Series game, should start after 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Little kids should be sitting on their dad's lap watching baseball and talking about it the same way I brought you in when you were a little kid. Kerry Wood was having his 20 strikeout game, and I brought you in from the other room. I said, you will never see this again. And we watched that whole game. Baseball needs to remember that without the 6, 7, 8-year-olds, your game is going to die. And what's happened since the 1970s, the games have started later and later and later, and baseball is slowly committing suicide.
Yeah, your games are ending at midnight, and your games are taking 6 hours, so it adds even more time. No playoff game, period, should start past 6 p.m. Central Time. What about the West Coast? Your game is starting at what, 4 o'clock?
3, 4 in the afternoon. Yeah.
3 in the afternoon?
No, it'd be 4. If it's 6 o'clock Central, it'd be 4 o'clock.
I'm saying 6 o'clock Eastern, so 3 o'clock Western Pacific time. That's when it starts. That's when the Super Bowl starts.
Right.
In the Western time zone. We may say, well, it's a weekday. Listen, if you get people that engaged in baseball, then they're going to take that time off to watch their team win. And here's the reality of the situation. Guess when the West Coast is getting home to finish the game? They are getting home at 5, 6 o'clock when it's now in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning.
And don't think they wouldn't be listening to every single strike on the radio and rushing to get home to see that last couple innings.
Right.
Baseball is better in some ways on the radio. I grew up listening to Euchre and Vince Scully and Harry Carey and Jack Brickhouse on the radio. Baseball is perfect for radio because it's theater of the mind, and that's what it should return to.
You'd get that drive time radio viewership for sure.
Viewership on the radio?
Yeah, listenership. Listen, I'm too excited for this episode.
But let's go through these one by one.
Well, hold on. We got the next one here because I mentioned I'm working on my Segway game. You got to let me do my thing because I mentioned 6-hour games.
No.
I can fix it. I can fix it right now. And this is the one where you and I disagree the most, not necessarily on this rule change. I finally got you to my side that you agree the rule change needs to take place, but you don't agree because you're this purist of baseball. No, it's not the DH in both leagues, which was a rule change, but I already won that one.
It shouldn't have happened.
It should have happened. It's a brilliant move.
No, it wasn't.
But this one is only one pitching change during an inning per game. The most thing you were upset about with the DH rule is that you lost the chess piece late in the game. You now change it. Let me break this down because I know you want to jump in, but I want to make sure everybody understands what I'm talking about here. Baseball has changed it right now where a pitcher has to face 3 hitters, right? That's a rule. It's a dumb rule. What I can't stand about baseball more than anything in the world is the amount of pitching changes. Let me ask you a question. Do you know how long it takes to change a pitcher in Major League Baseball?
I'd say on average 4 minutes.
10
minutes?
Minutes to change a pitcher.
Because of all the commercials. It should never happen.
10 minutes to change a pitcher. Do you know how long extra time it takes in between innings to change a pitcher?
Same amount as
no extra time because you go to commercial anyway.
And by the way, before anybody jumps in and goes, well, that's where baseball makes their money. Baseball needs to price their product appropriately. Instead of having 10 minutes of commercials, charge more for a lesser amount. It'll be more valuable. Just like the Super Bowl commercials are the most valuable commercial space in the world. Baseball can do the same thing.
You're lucky it was a good point because I was going to call you out for interrupting when I asked you not to. But it was a good point, so thank you.
It tied in with your point.
It was perfect. What I am suggesting is you can make just one pitching change during the middle of an inning per game. All of your other pitching changes have to be made between innings. If you make your pitching change in the middle of the first inning, you can't change your pitcher in the middle of an inning for the rest of the game. And let me tell you why this rule is so important. It is because I see you out of the corner of my eye. I got great peripheral. Got you right here. Why this is so important is because right now what we have in baseball is a bunch of people that can throw a damn ball. They can throw it 100 miles per hour. No one can pitch anymore. You got Max Scherzer, you got Clayton Kershaw, and that's it.
Justin Verlander.
And Ohtani can pitch. That's it. Even Garrett Cole apparently can't pitch anymore. He's just throwing at this point. When I fell in love with baseball, I fell in love with 3 pitchers, really. Kerry Wood, Mark Pryor, and the one I loved more watching than anything, Greg Maddux. And the reason I loved watching Greg Maddux is because Greg Maddux wasn't a baseball player. Greg Maddux was an artist. Greg Maddux would put that ball wherever he wanted. I don't think in my lifetime I ever saw Greg Maddux throw a ball more than 90 miles per hour.
If he did, it was early in his career when he was a Cub.
Right. But what I did see is wherever that glove was, is where Greg Maddux was putting the ball. Why couldn't you hit Greg Maddux? Because he knew exactly where that ball was going. Randy Johnson was a pitcher. Randy Johnson would set up his fastball with his changeup, with his slider, with his curveball. Kerry Wood would set up his fastball with his curveball. Now we have guys going 1 inning, and that's it.
All they do is throw a fastball.
I remember watching, why can't I think of his name? He used to play for the Angels in the World Series. when they won the World Series versus the Giants?
Fight of blue?
No.
I don't
No,
remember.
early 2000s.
I know, I don't remember.
But he was getting pulled out of the game, and he said, no, this one's mine. If you let me know in the comments below. But he said, this one's mine.
You mean what Corbin Burns should have told Craig Counsell before he punched him in the mouth?
Correct. When he pulled him out of that no-hitter. Now, this is the part I know you disagree. And listen, I'm with you on this one because, and I'll let you jump in now, I know you want to go back to where starters go 9.
I would love to see starters go 9, but before we do that, and I think people in general are tired of Moneyball. They're just over it.
Agreed.
We cannot play baseball by a computer.
Nope.
Managers have to have gut instincts. We have to go back to the days of, with Harvey Keene and I'm blanking on the guy who got in a fight when he was an older guy, Don Zimmer, where you manage the game based on what you're seeing on the field. It's a chess game between you and the other manager. You're not looking at a computer going, oh, well, his tendency is to do this, this, and this. Oh, he's pitched. He's thrown 33 pitches. We got to get him out of there.
Don Zimmer famously said when he asked why he put Kirk Gibson into the game for his game.
It's Tommy Lasorda.
Tommy Lasorda, famously said when he put Kirk Gibson in for the game-winning home run, why did you put Kirk Gibson in? I had a feeling.
The only time the World Series was won in Game 1.
It was.
That never happens today
It
with
does not.
Moneyball because they would have said, no, I don't think it's going to happen. Baseball has to go back to the times where pitchers are going into games and they're expected to go 7 and 8 innings. And it also has to go back to a manager actually letting him pitch and I know there's a lot of money on
Trusting
the line.
your players.
Trust the players, but I know there's a lot of money on those arms. Fine.
You pay them for a reason.
Pay them to pitch and let them go 6 and 7 innings and stop throwing.
If you pay a guy $100 million
You better go
for
8
3
innings.
years, that guy better go 8. He
You
better
would
be
think.
able to go 8 every single day for the entire season. That's what you pay him for. But here's the other point on why this rule change is so important to baseball. Not only do you get back the art of forcing pitchers to pitch and not just throw, what you also do is you immediately shorten game times. Because let me ask you this, because I did some digging. I did some homework. What is the average amount of pitching changes in 2022 during a single game?
I would bet it's 6 times minimum.
10.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. What is the average number of pitching changes in 2022 that happened in the middle of an inning during a game?
2?
7.
7. Okay.
7 times
Okay, so
per game.
if there's 10 changes.
10 changes, some of them in the middle of an inning. The one I want to focus on is the fact that set per game, 7 times a pitcher is
ridiculous.
changed
That's
in the middle of an inning. Now, remember what I asked you before. What is the amount of time it takes to change a pitcher?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. What you have just done is added 70 minutes of no action, of nothing happening to a baseball game. If you make this rule change where it's 1 per inning, not only does it make baseball more exciting, and I'll get to why in a second, but what you've just done is you have just taken an hour and a half off of every single game. Really, what is this? It's an hour and 40 minutes.
Hour and 10 minutes.
Hour and 10 minutes, 70 minutes.
Is it 7
70
changes
minutes.
per team or between the two?
Between the two.
Okay. So yeah, you're 110.
So either way, you've just gotten an hour and 10 minutes back from a game where no action is happening. You've now, imagine what that does to a game. The average game in 2022 was 3.5 hours.
We're back to 2.5.
We're back to 2.5 hour games with that simple change. That's all you need to do. And why this also makes baseball more exciting. And yes, Kyle's having a rant for once, and I'm rolling with it.
I'm not arguing. I'm letting it go. Go.
The reason it also makes baseball more exciting is because it brings the chess part back to baseball. And what it does is you now have something in your back pocket. Because if you still have your pitching change, it's like a challenge in football.
Mm-hmm.
If you still have a pitching change in your back pocket in the 9th inning, where you can change any time a pitcher out, it doesn't matter if somebody faces one batter. You can have somebody face a lefty and somebody face a righty. If you get that with the last out of the game, that's something the other manager has to still think about. If you have a pitcher that's blowing up in the first inning, you as a manager all of a sudden have a choice to make. Am I going to just let him figure this out? Or am I going to waste my change and possibly cost myself the game later on?
And in some cases where guys just don't have it on one night, you've got to make the change in the first inning.
Right.
You just have to.
There was nothing better than forcing pitchers to figure it out. It was fun to watch because I'm sorry, this is pansy baseball. This isn't real baseball. This is oh, you're struggling right now, so we're going to take you out of the game and save you. No, figure it out. You were paid to be here. Figure it out.
I know he was on my overrated list, but I want to bring up this guy specifically. The toughest competitor probably of my lifetime, other than maybe a Bob Gibson, Nolan Ryan. He didn't come out of games.
No.
Could you imagine in one of his no-hitters if his manager had dared come out and said, okay, we're taking you out before you go out for the ninth inning?
I mean, I saw what he did to a 25-year-old when he was 43, so.
It would have been fun to watch because I would have loved to see Counsell on his back for trying to take out Corbin Burns, which is what should have happened. And by the way, has Burns been close to a no-hitter since then? No.
He's never going to get that back again.
Never getting it back.
Craig Counsell cost Corbin Burns a career-defining moment, a moment that would have immediately put him in the Hall of Fame for all time.
Yeah, well, it was the same as Jim Joyce.
Yeah, it may have. Jim Joyce should be reversed. Galarraga threw a perfect game, and the fact that hasn't been fixed yet bothers me to the core, but that's a different conversation.
Stop chasing squirrels. I've just used it as an
big
example.
Squirrel that bothers me a lot.
It bothers me too. He had the fact I respect Jim Joyce for what he did.
Yes.
It should be overturned. He should have his perfect game.
Right. But this makes people actually play baseball again. You can't play this Craig Counsell bullshit analytics money ball that shouldn't be in the game anymore.
Warren Spahn, right here.
363 wins.
As a lefty, most of them were complete games.
Correct. Some of them went 16 innings.
Would that ever happen in today's game? No. And how was his arm? He pitched for 24 years.
Some people got it.
And he had it. And and we'll never know if these guys can do it because they're never getting a chance to see if they have it.
Nope. You're taking it away. There's nothing better than having a pitcher early in the season where you leave him in the game when he's struggling to figure it out because you're not going to waste your one pitching change per game. Because guess what that could do for him later on in the playoffs when he's struggling?
Toughens him up.
All of a sudden, you've been here before. All of a sudden, you don't have to worry about it. You just made a better player rather than taking him out, and now he's in that same situation in the playoffs, and he's just waiting for you to take him out again. And you're not going to do that because you only have one pitching change. You're forcing your player to toughen up. You're forcing managers again to see what they have on their team. Look at Major League, right? I got to see what I got.
Exactly.
And he knew his guys. And that's what you need managers to know again. You need to know who you have in your bullpen. You need to know who can handle this and who can't.
Who can dig deep when it gets bad.
Right.
That's the sign of a winner is when somebody's doesn't have it for a game. I mean, Kerry Wood using that 20 strikeout game, he didn't have it in the bullpen. He found it on the mound.
He did.
And then it just got better and better and better.
That bullpen session he had to start the game, it was going to look like a long game.
Oh, it was going to be ugly.
He was not looking good, but he got on the mound and figured it out. And in today's game, Kerry Wood would have never been allowed to have 20 strikeouts.
No, that record will never be broken because now he would have been pulled after the 6th inning. We can't risk an injury. Right. Learn to freaking pitch it.
I want to know, you can ask Kerry Wood right now, that 20 strikeout game lives in lore for all time to where people still talk about it. Do you think Kerry Wood would have rather had his career the way he had it and always be remembered for that 20 strikeout game, or magically possibly get injured anyways, even though he was taken out of that game, and never have that moment? Because I bet you my life that he says he wouldn't trade that moment for the world.
He said it. He said it in an interview. He would never change that day. It was magic. And that kind of magic is gone from baseball right now.
It is. It is. The other one, before we get into our division changes, which we have talked about a couple times before, but it's important to discuss again. But I want to talk about another change that needs to happen in baseball. You want to talk about taking time off the game.
Do not have the balk rule because it's a stupid
balk
rule.
Rule's stupid. Get rid of the balk rule. If you don't know what the balk rule is, they're putting in a new rule next year where the pitcher can only step off 3 times and then it's a balk and the runner automatically gets the base. It's a dumb rule. Rob Manfred doesn't know what he's talking about. But anyway, because I can, I want to talk about 2 more changes we have. Again, the DH was another idea that's already been in place, and it's perfect the way it is. I love it.
I hate it.
The other one, before we get into the most important change that needs to happen, which is a change in the divisions, we need to talk about ending the game in the 12th inning.
I like this rule a lot. I really do. Baseball, now cutting the games back to 2.5 hours, that means if it goes to extra innings and gets to the 12th inning, 13th inning, 14th inning, there's nothing worse than being at a ballpark and the game goes until 2 in the morning just because it's a 26-inning game, and it happens.
Right. What's the most exciting thing
the shootout
in sports? The shootout in hockey and the shootout in European football, American soccer.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Yeah, only the rest of the world.
They're idiots. I mean, but
I don't share that opinion.
Let's watch somebody kick a football up and down and they score 1 goal if they're lucky back, then put it back. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, glad you agree. The shootouts are exciting. And the NHL shootouts are the most exciting thing in sport. One of the greatest Olympic moments of all time was Sidney Crosby for Canada, Ryan Miller for U.S., the very last shot for the gold medal. It ruined Ryan Miller's career.
It did.
He was never the same after that. It ruined his career. We can bring that to baseball
very easily.
The 12th inning idea is,
and give credit where credit is due.
This is a Mike Greenberg idea.
Which I know those of you who remember Mike Greenberg's other idea about having the All-Star game decide home field advantage was stupid.
It ended up being stupid. We were all excited about it at the time.
It was something different, but
it was different. This one is better. So the 12th inning means that you will have extra innings. You will have the 10th and you will have the 11th to try and win the game. If you get to the 12th inning, it's home run derby time. And what that means, in my rule change, what that means is that you pick one batter. You can have this batter on your bench where this is all the dude does. He's just there for these home run derbies. But what it means is that you get 3 warm-up pitches to look at them, and then you get 6 straight balls to see how many home runs you can get.
Who's pitching to him?
Whoever.
Your own team
is pitching.
Got it.
Whoever you want. Again, you can have a tag team duo that's all they do. Like that is what they're paid for, is for this specific moment. But you get 6 balls back to back to back 6 times to see how many home runs you hit. Then it changes to where the away team bats first, and then the home team bats second, where they get 6 balls in a row to hit how many home runs. If you're still tied after that, then the away team gets 1 ball, the home team gets 1 ball, and you go back and forth until somebody wins the game.
I think it's one of the more brilliant ways to end baseball and to make it exciting, because guess what every fan is rooting for? Just like it happened in the last All-Star game. They wanted a tie game because they wanted that home run derby at the end of the game.
Everybody was disappointed that it didn't happen. Yes. And what this does, too, is right now in baseball, if it goes extra innings, you don't know when that game's going to end.
No, you don't.
And people are leaving early. These games are already going 3.5, 4 hours on average. And now who knows when this is going to end? You have other things to do. What this does now is not only are you sitting through the 10th and the 11th.
You're praying for the 12th.
You are praying for the 12th. You want it to stay tied at the 10th and the 11th. If it's tied in the 9th, part of you's thinking,
home run derby.
Let's go to extra innings because this is exciting.
People don't leave the game at that point.
They don't, because everybody's going to stay and want to see that. Can you imagine a World Series that comes down to the Game 7 home run derby?
No.
It'd be the most exciting thing to ever happen in baseball.
Game 7 plays out the way baseball is played out.
You can't do that.
Yes, you can.
You can't have rules for an entire season and then change it for one game.
Wimbledon did it for years. They had the tiebreaker, except in the fifth set, you play it out. Play out the game 7 all the way.
So 1-on-1, not 9-on-9. You can't change one game.
I can.
And
I did.
What's one of the, not one of the, what is the greatest World Series moment that is played over and over and over again?
It wasn't a World Series.
It was a World Series.
Which one are you talking about?
Game 7 of the World Series.
With Joe Carter?
With Joe Carter.
I was thinking of the shot heard round the world. The Giants won the pennant. The Giants. And the
that
Giants
as well.
had to win, didn't they?
The Giants had to win. They did. But it was the home run that Joe Carter hit, and the shot. Giants win the pennant. It was a home run, the homer and the Gloman by the Chicago Cubs back in the day.
Babe Ruth called shot.
Babe Ruth called shot. That wasn't to win the game, but it was cool.
It was cool. But, and I just, because we're going through all the greatest home runs, include that, and then I'll include Henry Aaron, the all-time home run king, 750.
Always looking for an excuse.
Not at all.
You're as bad as me with that as I am with Kurt Warner.
Why, that Henry Aaron is the all-time home run king because we don't reward cheaters for doing what they
Make your
did?
point.
Anyways, I can go either way on this. I really can. I like to see the game play out with 9 players on the field and the whole team has to go and win. But I could also see it. You're right. If we're going to play by one set of rules the whole game, if you want to do it in the 7th game, it would be an exciting way to end the World Series. I just don't want to cheapen that 7th game because it's exciting enough as it is without a home run derby.
But think about it, though. The whole point of this is to make sure a younger generation is along with this.
Okay. Except think of 2016, and I think we've got a video. 2 a.m.
10th inning.
10th inning. Extra innings. Baseball is being played. Baseball 9-on-9. It's one of the greatest moments of our lives.
Right. But can you imagine if that game went 16 innings? The game would have ended at 6 a.m.
I get it. I do. But even if, it would have been 5 a.m, if it would have been 12 innings. I mean, that was going on forever with the rain delay. It's just, we can disagree on it. The basic rule is fine. I would like to see game 7 played 9-on-9 until we have a winner. You want the home run derby.
I want the home run derby.
Let the fans, let the audience decide, put in the comments which way you'd like to see it go.
Let him know that he's wrong.
No.
And
that's
that
right.
you want to see the home run derby in Game 7 of the World Series to end it all. Come on, Aaron Judge versus Kyle Schwarber in a home run derby to end the World Series?
I would rather see Aaron Judge facing a Ohtani. Well, it would never happen. They're both American League. But Justin, pick your pitchers, whatever. But I would rather see Aaron Judge facing the number 1 pitcher for the other team and winning the game that way.
Sure, but if you get down to the end of it,
notice how there's
exciting
so
way to
few
end.
pitchers in baseball. I couldn't even think of another.
I mean, Clayton Kershaw would have been the National League one you wanted to mention in that moment. You let us know in the comments below what you think, and don't forget to do this right here, which is like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it.
Now I'm going to set this up because I'm the traditionalist. I'm the guy who thinks baseball is perfect as it is. However, baseball has got to change some things. And that means it's time for baseball to take a look at their American and National League globally to make the game better. And that means it's time to break up the divisions and break up the leagues to reconfigure them. They're playing against each other all the time anyways. So the American League and National League don't mean as much anymore. So with that, you explain what we're talking about.
We are talking about the new divisions in baseball. It is time to no longer have 3 divisions with 5 teams. It is time to have 5 divisions with 3 teams each. You can see our division lineups that we have thought of here. Some of these may look unfair. I don't really care because these are great divisions, because I think an amazing thing is having these rivalries in baseball intact. And what this does right here, what you see, is it's going to change the landscape of baseball, where once again you have to win to get in. You have to win your division. And what it also does, it has a 1/3 chance of winning your division every single year. Imagine what that does to the offseason in baseball. The trade deadline's no longer the greatest thing in baseball, which honestly, if you have half your league selling off their future,
You're destroying half the teams so other teams can make their run to the pennant. And it's not right.
that's a bad sign. If the greatest thing you have is your trade deadline, which is half your teams giving up on the season and giving up on their future, then you've done something wrong in baseball. What we need to do is make the offseason more exciting, and having a 1/3 chance every single year
And for those
is exactly what's going to do that.
And you're still going to play every team. You're still going to play 162, but you're going to be chasing 1 and 3. And here's an example. Everybody's going to go, well, the Dodgers have won every year. Not so. Let's see, which was it? In 2021, the Giants actually won 107 games to the Dodgers 106. How exciting would that be coming down to game 162?
Which is exactly what baseball used to be.
Exactly.
Right now, what you have in baseball is a regular season of 162 games. It doesn't matter.
No.
Nobody gives a shit.
People are just
Nobody
going to get a playoff.
cares.
This forces teams to win to get in.
What you have now, too, is a bunch of owners that don't care about baseball. You have owners that literally are tanking every single year. You have Miami, you have Pittsburgh, you have Baltimore, whose owners literally couldn't care less about winning. With revenue sharing, that money's not going to the players, and it hasn't. It was the dumbest thing to ever do because it literally just gave these owners more reason to tank.
Exactly. And
Now, I don't have to spend this money on my players because they never put in rules that says X amount of this needs to go to the players.
So this year's playoff teams in the National League would have been the Dodgers with 111 wins, the Cardinals with 93, Philadelphia would have won their division with 87 games, Atlanta with 104 or 101, excuse me, and San Diego would have won the other division with 89. In the American League, it would have been Seattle, Toronto, Houston, the Mets and what we have, and Cleveland. All had to win to get into the playoffs. And you know who's not there? The Yankees.
The Red Sox.
And the Red Sox.
Can you imagine a division? It's honestly my favorite division because everybody would watch it. A division with New York Mets, New York Yankees, and Boston Red Sox.
Great division.
Fighting every single year. As a fan, you may look at that and say, well, that's not fair because we can't get into the playoffs. Wouldn't you rather be more excited during the regular season? Wouldn't that enhance the rivalry? Because it would. Do you know how I know that? Because it did. Because that's exactly what happened not that long ago. And baseball has diluted their product.
And to prove your point, in 2019, the Yankees are in the playoffs.
Let's go into that. I'm going to pull this up right here. So let's look at right now, and you're going to have to read it because I can't read your handwriting.
That's fine. But let's take a look.
Let's take a look at this year.
Okay.
So if we look at this year, the National League teams,
quote unquote National League.
Well, our idea of what the National League would be, because as you can see, we did move some teams around. But if we followed this, who would the playoff teams be this year?
As I said, it would have been the Dodgers, the Cardinals, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and San Diego. Would have been your playoff team. Pretty close to what it was.
Now let's look at the National League in 2021. We're not including 2020 in this, by the way, because it was a shortened season. But let's look at 2021.
All right. In 2021, it would have been San Francisco, the Chicago White Sox, which would have won the division with the White Sox, the Cubs, and the Cardinals. Philadelphia would have still been in there. Atlanta and Oakland A's would have been in the playoffs because they're in the division with Oakland, San Diego, and Arizona. Now take a look at the American League, and
let's keep the National League because I'm going to pull up the National League stats here as well. Now let's take a look at 2019 National League.
2019 National League, and I didn't highlight this, but it would have been the Dodgers with 106 wins. It would have been the Chicago St. Louis Cardinals would have won that division. Philly would have won. Atlanta would have been in again. And it would have been San Diego. So let me make sure I got that right. Yes, I did.
You did.
No, Washington. I take that back. I was wrong. In 2019, The Washington Nationals would have been in, not the Philadelphia Phillies.
Because that was the year they won the World Series.
Yes. So Washington would have been in. And what's great about this,
I mean, it's parity.
It's parity. And if you look at 2019, 2021, 2022 in that Yankees, Mets, Boston division.
Well, we haven't done the AL yet, but just looking at the National League, you're getting ahead of yourself.
I know, because it's
we're just looking
so good.
If we're just looking at the National League right now, I mean, we have several different teams making the playoffs
Correct.
at different times throughout the year. And again, if your team's not doing something to get to the playoffs, then they're doing something wrong, and you should be calling for a new owner. Now, I know you're more excited about the American League, so let's get into the American League standings.
But let's take a look at one division. Okay, so let's take a look at the Atlanta division, because I think it highlights what we were talking. One of the big arguments for making this change. Atlanta would have won in 1921 and 22. Baltimore is making strides to get better, but your fan base is not going to stand for the fact that you can't be competitive in a 3-team division. Miami either needs to get better or get out of baseball and move the team. It's time. They've had the stadium long enough.
It is time. I mean, the fact that Derek Jeter left because they're refusing to win and to pay players to win is a joke.
Well, and it's all the owners. They're just pocketing. Baltimore's pocketed a lot of money and not put it back in his team. This is going to force teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore to really have to invest in their team. And I would love to see baseball have an owner in baseball, like in the Yankees, the Steinbrenners, do what in football happened, and where you share in this case, the local TV revenues.
But they do now. They do now. They do. And that's a problem right now. And this is where I agreed with the players in the last collective bargaining agreement, is the players wanted to end sharing revenue across all teams. And the reason being is because owners like Pittsburgh, Miami, Baltimore aren't spending it on players. There's no rules that stated they have to spend it on players and try to win, which means they don't need to win to make money because they're going to make money off of everybody else, which means that you have terrible baseball and you have terrible owners who are never going to sell the team, because why would they?
It's just a money factor.
You need to change in the collective bargaining agreement that 85% of revenue sharing, 90%, fine, even better, needs to go to player spending.
I have no problem. You know me. I have no problem with owners making money, but the players need to make the money. And if you're
ruining the sport,
if you're in the business, any business, you're putting your profits and your money back into the business to make it grow. That's not what happens in baseball.
It's not. We have a bunch of terrible owners, which they just don't care about the game. And it's ruining the game. But let's go over. I'm going to flip it over now. Let's go to the American League.
All right.
So 2022, this year, what would the playoffs look like?
This year, it would be Seattle, Toronto, Houston, Cleveland, and the Mets. It's
a different looking playoffs.
It's a different looking playoffs. In 2021, it would have been Seattle, Milwaukee, Tampa Bay. They would have beat Houston, Boston, and make note of that, and Cincinnati.
When's the last time you've seen Cincinnati in the playoffs?
They would have been in now. And look what's happening. Every fan base is getting involved. Let's take a look at 2019, because it's very interesting. You would have had, in this case, it would have been Colorado. And it's the one time where a losing record is getting into the playoffs. I will admit that. But Colorado would have gotten in. It would have been Minnesota with 101 wins that year. They would have been in. It would have been Houston. It would have been the New York Yankees. So in that division, over a 3-year span, each team won 1 year. And it would have also been Cleveland would have been in the playoffs. So another team again.
I mean, also what you're getting in there is you look at Colorado and Seattle. I mean, they're getting into the playoffs in a team's franchise that don't ever really get in.
And if you're in a 3-team division, take a look at the Seattle, Colorado, Kansas City. You don't think they're going to make moves in the offseason to try to get better, because they only have to beat 2 other teams that are actually not that good. Right. They're going to do whatever they can.
Look at Minnesota, Milwaukee, and Toronto.
Yes.
I mean, you don't think they're going to be making moves?
It's going to be
the Yankees, Red Sox, and Mets. They have no choice but to make moves. You look at the National
Dodgers,
League,
San Francisco,
and the Angels.
you're going to have to make the Angels are going to have to pony up. I don't know what the hell's wrong with them.
They pony up. They just don't
They just
spend
never
on
win.
the right places.
Right. You've got, Mike Trout and Ohtani, and you still can't win.
Right.
I don't get it. But I just think, and people are going to go, well, no, we've got to have tradition. I'm the biggest traditionalist on the face of the planet. He will attest to it.
To the point where it's annoying.
Probably. But in this case, look how much better the game is by doing this. And if you're looking at me going, 3 teams is just not exciting. Really? There's only 4 in the NFL, and everybody seems to think that is the best of all worlds.
Right. Basketball has divisions, I think, but they don't even matter.
They don't matter because everybody gets in. This is a way where nationwide, you're going to be watching the other divisions, and guess what? You're also watching 162 games because the difference is going to be 1 or 2 games.
Right. In the NFL, when it comes down to the end, you're watching Green Bay, Minnesota when they're fighting for the division. You're going to also watch the New York Giants and Philadelphia Eagles games on different channels because you want to see who gets into that. It's a fight for the division, for the wild card. You're going to watch that because the seeding makes a huge difference in the NFL. When it comes to baseball, if you have Seattle and Colorado going at each other, you're going to watch those games because it's interesting on who's going to get in the playoffs and who's going to win.
And here's the other thing. You're saying, well, there's 5 divisions. What do? The 4th and 5th team play a 1-game playoff to see who gets into the regular round of
I don't like that they got rid of it. I thought the 1-game playoff for the time that they had it was the most exciting game in baseball. It moved things along quickly.
And what was also the one, if there's a tie going in, and by the way, this year, there were 3 teams that tied with 92 and 70, so you had to go head-to-head to get the seedings.
You go head-to-head, and then you go against division.
Correct. And in this case, I think Seattle was the number 1 or the 3rd seed.
Right.
But if you take a look at this, I love the 1 game because it's exciting. The most exciting thing in baseball is if there's a tie at the end of the year, you have a 1-game play in to get into the playoffs. It's still exciting. I don't care. You know what? Get better.
Right.
So you're in. Win more games.
Right. Win a couple more games, and it makes all the difference in the world. Plus, if you're the 4 and 5 seed, you're not using all your players to tire them out. It's 1 game.
Exactly.
You're not using your whole bench. You're going to use your best starting lineup you have, and you're going to go.
And by the way,
move on.
And by the way, your pitchers are going to be more ready to pitch because they've had to pitch all year.
Right.
They don't get pulled every freaking inning.
It's a shorter game, and you're going to start it at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So it's going to be earlier in the day. It's just all around a better game.
This is how baseball can be saved.
We just fixed baseball, man.
It wasn't that hard to do.
Baseball.
We actually thought of this years ago, and we sent in a letter to Bud Selig.
We did. We still have the letter.
Yeah.
It was. I don't think he ever looked at it, but he signed the letter back to us, which was
nice.
really nice.
Yeah, it was nice. But Rob Manfred, you can fix baseball by becoming, you're very much like Fudge in the Harry Potter movies. You have a chance to be one of the greatest of all commissioners, or you could be seen as the man who stood by while baseball went down the drain. What's it going to be? That was a very good analogy.
That was solid. That's 2.
That's 2
you've gotten today that have surprised me. Well done.
Thank you, sir. But seriously, these changes are going to make baseball more fun to watch. The kids are going to love this because they're going to get involved. And what 7 or 8-year-old isn't going to want that home run derby? The games are going to move quicker. Baseball charge more for your ads because you got to have value. Value your freaking product for once.
Right.
You don't need 10 commercials. Charge them more.
Well, and here's something exciting for kids too. And this is very important. When I was younger, watching Greg Maddux pitch, I knew that I could figure out how to do that.
Yes.
I knew that okay, so you're telling me I don't have to throw 100 miles per hour? Because let's be honest, 1% of the population on this planet can throw 100 miles per hour. And what you're showing now in baseball with this analytics BS is that you have to throw 100 miles per hour to ever make it in the major leagues as a pitcher.
And
Greg Maddux wasn't that way.
No.
Greg Maddux, anybody could be Greg Maddux. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of precision, and it takes a lot of talent and energy. But anybody could be Greg Maddux with the right. I mean, no, not everybody can be Greg Maddux.
No, I get
but
it.
as a kid, you assumed you could be Greg Maddux.
Well, and look at the team that they had. Let's take a look at the Braves back in the day. They had Greg Maddux, not a power pitcher.
Nope.
Tom Glavine, not a power pitcher.
Nope.
John Smoltz, power pitcher,
Yes.
but he also could pitch.
Right.
He was the only guy who led the league in relief pitching, but he was also an outstanding
Because
starter.
Smoltz could power pitch, but Smoltz set up his power pitch.
He pitched, which is exactly what we're talking about. Pitchers, you don't have pitchers in baseball with the very few exceptions that we've listed off here today. You have throwers that go in and throw hard for an inning, and their manager yanks them out, and that's got to change.
Right.
Moneyball has just got to go away.
Right. You're bringing kids back into the game because there's nothing. I remember going out watching Greg Maddux and Kerry Wood. Now, in the side yard, I couldn't do what Kerry Wood could do. Kerry Wood had the arm gifted by the gods.
He did.
Greg Maddux, however, while also understanding his arm was gifted by the gods, Greg Maddux, I could go out and I could make the ball move like Greg Maddux could. I could hit your glove without you moving it, and that was always my goal in the side yard because the catcher never had to move his glove with Greg Maddux. That's what made me excited to go out in the side yard as a kid.
And just point of order, I never let him throw a curveball until he was 16. It was fastballs and sliders and having it move. He learned a 2-seam and a 4-seam fastball, and he learned how to throw a good slider. And that's all kids until they're 16. That's all they should throw, by the way.
Somebody else taught me a curveball, and then I hurt myself.
Exactly. One of the best pitchers I grew up with was a kid named Jeff Bender. But he started throwing a curveball, and by the time he was 16, his arm was dead.
Yeah.
He was a good
They're still
pitcher.
talking about banning curveballs in Little League World Series, which I think
be.
they should. But back to this real quick, just to wrap it up. The only one pitching change during an inning per game makes
Brilliant.
pitchers pitch again.
Yes.
It shortens the game by an average of an hour and 10 minutes. That's on average. Some games it would shorten by 2 hours. You talk about the 12th inning, you're going to have an end to the game. Period. The game is going to end, and it's going to end in one of the most exciting ways you can ever end a game. Move up the start time to playoff games. Don't lose a generation of kids. Don't lose a generation of baseball fans because you will die.
You've already lost one.
You have. You are killing yourself because you are not playing games during the day. This 8:30 Eastern time start game, guess what? On Wednesday night, my kid's bedtime is 7:30. They're in bed before your game starts. How am I supposed to let my kid enjoy a World Series? Move up the start time to these games. 5 divisions with 3 teams each. Make baseball about winning again. That is what is unique about baseball. Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Exactly. Embrace what makes you great.
Be the trendsetter. Don't be the person that follows everybody else and you let them set the trends for you. Be the trendsetter. Be yourself and allow people to enjoy you for what you are, which is an amazing game. You've already done the DH, which I think is great.
No.
Yes.
No.
I think it's amazing.
No.
But you put in these 4 rules, you save baseball.
And you've got some strategy back into it, as you said, with that pitching change. And that's the only reason I'm not even making more of a stink about the DH, but that ship has sailed. It's done. So
it's off in the distance around the curve.
I'm not going to beat a horse that's dead other than the fact that Henry Aaron is still the all-time home run king. And so is
and we'll
Aaron
beat
Judge.
that horse again.
Oh, says the man who goes after Kurt Warner every single chance.
It's not my fault Kurt Warner shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Anyways, I think we've had a great show.
I do too.
Listen, honestly, you let us know in the comments below what you think. Let us know what you think about these divisions. Maybe we got the divisions wrong, but you can't argue with me that the 5 divisions with 3 teams each is not the best idea you've heard of baseball in a long time. This can fix baseball, which is exactly what I want to happen. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and make sure you share this one so Rob Manfred gets a hold of this, because Robbie, Bobby, Robert,
moron,
that works too. You're ruining the game. Grow a pair and stand up to these owners and say, it's time to fix this game for the better. And if you're not willing to do it, get out of the way and bring in somebody who is, because you are ruining this sport. You are costing a generation, and you're ruining the future of this great game that we have.
And that's the problem with the commissioners. You need somebody who's going to not only watching out for the money, but going to be a caretaker of the sport.
Listen, Judge Landis, I've said 1,000 times, I hate him as a person because he was a disgusting human being. But when it came to being a commissioner of baseball, he saved the sport after the 1919 Black Sox, doing something that a lot of people disagreed with at the time, which was going into the live ball era that took baseball into a whole different stratosphere of popularity and made Babe Ruth what he is today.
The greatest player that's ever played. Look, these changes that we're proposing that should actually happen are not as drastic as they sound if you take a step back and really look at them. But what it's going to do, it's going to make sure that baseball is there for the next 100 years plus. I am deathly afraid that at the end of my lifetime, and certainly by your kid's lifetime, baseball is going to be behind soccer.
Baseball's becoming tennis.
It's killing itself.
It's just completely killing itself by not paying attention to what's happening to the sport internally. And you have officially been destroying your sport, and this fixes it. So let us know what you think about this in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. Out of shared tradition, the scariest moment for me on this show. Any last words?
Yes. Two things. Number one, we're coming up on election day in a week. Don't complain if you don't vote. Number two, explain to me pickleball, because I really don't get it. The only reason that pickleball is existing the way it is because tennis screwed up their sport. So
we're going to get into that in another episode because, believe it or not, I agree with you. But hey, thank you so much as always for watching. We have hit 3,100 subscribers.
Thank you so much. In less than 1 year. We haven't been doing this 10 months yet.
It's a year, January 1st.
And we've grown to this point. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. If you want to see us talk about something else, let us know. We're going to continue to chase squirrels as often as we can.
We were pretty on point today. I only squirreled once.
Yeah, I squirreled.
That's fair. You did. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. We'll see you next time. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye now.